Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to Journey of the Modern Yogi. I'm your host, Adam. Today we have on the podcast Larissa Anderson. Larissa is a good friend and a former yoga studio owner. She had a studio over in the Kirkland area called Firehouse. Today we talk about, actually pretty in-depth about Clubhouse, the new app, and then her uses of it. Pretty intriguing. I'm really excited to check it out. Also talk about her unique relationship with yoga and being a manifest generator, among many other things. So we have a great conversation. Tune in. Hope you enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to Journey of the Modern Yogi. I'm your host, Adam Reel, and sitting across from me is an amazing friend of mine. I think we've become friends over the past maybe 3 or 4 years, probably 3 years. I practiced at your studio before I knew you as a person. Mm-hmm. I heard your name a lot through our mutual friend, Zach Halley. Mm-hmm. Just raved about you and Firehouse all the time. And so I went over to Firehouse and took some classes with Zach. Yep. And just fucking adored that studio. Such a beautiful place. And then was able to meet, teach with, work with, and get to know you through Bliss, more or less. Yep. I mean, that's where we kind of started hanging out.
Correct.
And man, you're just an awesome person. Yeah. I fucking love you. You're great to hang out with. We have the greatest conversation. Like, shit, we just talked for like 20 minutes about like you moving to Arizona, right? And I'm like, well, we should probably get started on the podcast, but at the same time, like, I just fucking love chatting with you. So let's chat about this for a while.
And I thought we had already started.
Well, technically, okay. So actually, to be fair, and you'll hear this as
were you recording already?
I was 100%.
Smart,
and,
very smart.
So the past, let's see, 2 recordings that I've done. So I've got 4. You're my 5th one so far, and the past 2 have started just like that, where I just hit record. We're in the middle of a conversation, and it's just like, okay, 15 minutes in. Okay, by the way, here's your guest, and I'm your host, and I guess we're just gonna chat in the middle of all this because it's good content. So yeah, we'll probably end up using all that in there somewhere. Either I splice it in the end, or I'll fucking just start off with a cold opening of Larissa talking about how she's moving to Arizona.
It's like it's the adventures of Larissa, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
I had a student who was taking my class the other day, and she goes, "Is there any way we can get like a outline of your hour-long hatha class?" And I looked at her and I just started laughing. I go, "No." And she goes, "I mean, like if you do 2 postures or 1 posture, or when you combine them, or flow, one posture to the next." And I said, "Yeah, the answer is still no." Yeah. And she goes, "Okay." And I said, "I don't even know what I'm going to do when I come into class. Yes, we have a sequence of postures, but I don't know exactly how it's going to unfold depending on the people and depending on the room energy and the time, because we all know I talk a lot. So,
and you've also been teaching that style for a long time. So you're very, I mean, that's intimate knowledge that you have, because you teach both the traditional hatha, which we, it was Bikram 90-minute, we shorted to 60. Right. And then, but you also teach the 2-hour long, the 84 pose. Yep. And I have not taken that class yet from you, which I'm super excited. I'm going to try to find a way. If you're teaching it before you leave, I'm going to try and find a way. But one way or the other, I'm going to figure it out. Because I've a mutual friend, Jordan, has started to take my classes over at B1.
Yes,
love her. She's amazing practice. Her. I saw her the other day. She was in. We did. What was that? Cobra, and then there's
locust, full locust.
Okay, she was doing full locust, right? And so I did 2 sets of full locust at that time, not throwing half locust in there. And so first set, she planted her legs and just lifted her entire torso up and just like brandished to the front of the room. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. I've seen pictures of that stuff, and I know people that can do that, but I've not seen that in actual practice.
Yes.
Wow, it was impressive.
Yes.
It almost threw me off.
Yes.
There's few people that can throw me off of my teaching game, and David Wilson is one of those people. My God, that guy's such a beast of a practice. Yeah. But when I see stuff like that, like, I'm not trying to say that that's what we should shoot for, and we all have impressiveness in our own practice. Right. But as somebody that appreciates what the yogic practice can do, that is a stage that you would see in, like, as an impression of, like, this is where you can take this pose.
Right, exactly.
And that was fucking impressive.
Yes. Yeah, it's really cool because I've known her for I probably 10 years
Okay.
or possibly more than that. But as a student, and then she wanted to get into competition. And so she actually came to Firehouse and had me coach her on some of the competition. So that was like where she really started to dive in to that process, and her evolution is incredible because again, you see her now and you don't think of all the work that she's actually put in to get where she's at right now. And she's still working on things. She's still exploring and expanding and like seeing what is possible with her body. And every time I have her in the room, practicing or we're, teaching together or something, it's just, you just like stop and stare. And you're like, I know I'm supposed to be doing my own thing, but
damn, that's impressive. Somebody got her cell phone in here.
Is anybody like seeing what I'm seeing? This is like amazing. And she's just so sweet about it. And, it's just, she's just humble and she works really hard at it. And it's not from an ego place at all. And so it just makes it even more beautiful.
Exactly. And that's exactly
to see the expression physically in her body.
Yep. Because you can tell from watching her make these shapes with her body that there's not an ego involved there. That's just like, hey, this is me being opened up to whatever the hell source or whatever I'm working towards. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned and this is something that's been new to me since I started yoga, but competition yoga. And to be fair, to me, on the surface level, it seems like the antithesis of yoga.
Yes.
Because, a lot of times yoga is like it's freedom of your personal expression of your body, of your practice.
Yeah.
And so to put like a number rating or like this is what this should, quote unquote, should look like seems a little strange. But I know we've talked about that. But if you could, if you want to talk about that a little bit, that'd be...
Well, because basically when yoga competition has actually been around for a really, really long time, but not in America.
Okay.
So I think our understanding of yoga competition comes from our own American, like, yes, exactly. Yep. So when we see like competition, we're like Americans, we're like, okay, we're competing, we have to win. You know, other people have to lose, and I've got to be the
game
best.
Mentality, right?
Right.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I mean, a lot of it from that ego point of view too. And I think from the Indian culture, it's not meant to be a competition in that same regard. It's just like watching Jordan. It's an expression of somebody through, physical practice.
Okay.
And so essentially you are seeing somebody's essence through their body.
Right.
Through yoga postures.
Gotcha.
So that's really kind of where it comes from.
Okay.
I think it's sort of what's behind it. I remember when it was first... I want to say like 2003, I think, around that time, that we started having the competitions in the Bikram yoga community.
Okay.
And I was reaching out in Washington State. I was reaching out to other yoga studios because it wasn't intended on being just a Bikram yoga competition, even though that was who was hosting it or, marketing it, if you will. Right. So I was reaching out to any yoga studio, and they were like, yeah, we don't want to have anything to do with this. I'm like, but it's not a competition like you normally think of a competition. It's people bettering themselves through the practice of yoga, and they're just expressing it on stage.
Okay.
And yes, we do have the national winner, local and national and international winner, because you're supporting the person who has done all that work to then be able to go around the world and to be able to share yoga with more people. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And with the scoring, is it so with like skateboarding, roller, like the X Games, for example, right? They the way the judging worked, I don't know if it still works this way, but they would look at like, okay, so let's say I'm a skateboarder.
Right.
I have in the past I've accomplished these goals and these tricks in my skateboarding regime, right? And so the judges would know that about me and say, okay, so he's done a 360 nollie flip, right? So if he's going to do that again, he's got to do it better than he did it the previous time.
Right.
But let's say he's never done a backside ollie and he throws a backside ollie in. It's like, holy shit, he learned a new trick. So he's going to get a little bit more points for that because the judges understand that I put work in to develop something in a different way.
Yes.
So is it kind of like that where it's not like, you've done the perfect dancer. It's like, oh my God, that dancer was so much better than you did last time, per se, quote unquote.
Yes.
But, the separation and the openness and the blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely have to agree with that because like the first competition, compared to the next year, to the next year, to the next year, and people who, maybe didn't win the local competition would come back and be able to compete again. And it pushed everybody to be better in their own practice, and then they would see somebody do a posture, one of the optional postures, and they're like, whoa, I want to do that.
Okay,
so then that year they work on that particular posture, and then somebody will throw in something different the next year, and then everybody's like, I want to do that. And so it kept creating this natural evolution within the practice to just see again what's possible.
I love that.
And, a lot of the judges were, around for each. I mean, there was some rotation of new judges coming in, but yeah, we would be able to see people's progression individually as well as like collectively, which is so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things I love most about teaching is watching somebody progress. Seeing somebody, let's say headstand, for example, get up there using the mirror, using the wall, whatever it is. And then they're not by a wall one day and then they roll out, but they tuck and roll. It's like you fell, but you did the fall the right way.
Yeah.
You tucked and rolled. You didn't take anybody out around you. Fucking great job. You did awesome, right?
You're like, high five.
Yeah, right. God, I had a woman the other day do that. This is COVID time. So, our practices are not what they used to be, right? And everybody's trying to get back to some semblance of what their practice was.
Yep.
And so, there's a woman in my class the other day that in pre-COVID times, handstands, headstands, doing it all. And so I could see she's kind of timid, and the teacher in me wants to support her, but I can't, because COVID times. I'm like, I just want to be there, but I can't. But she got up, she held it, and then she tucked and rolled and just kind of fell, but on her back, landed on her butt. Didn't knock anybody out. And she looked at me and I just gave her a big thumbs up. Like, you did exactly what you needed to do.
Right.
Like, you're progressing, girl.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like, especially with everything that's gone on with COVID is you do feel like you're starting all over again.
Yeah.
And then there's been these like fits and starts. I think even just for us as teachers and, and of course the students as well. So I can completely understand where she's coming from, because the things that I was doing before COVID, I feel very more insecure about now, and I do feel that timidness, but it's like, but I'm going to try it anyways.
Totally. Yeah.
And,
if I'm up there,
going to fall, I fall, or I'm going to be sore for the next 5 days. Probably. Yeah. Okay. It's just like I'm a beginner again. And that's fine.
Beginner's mind,
Yeah.
I love the quote. Shunju Suzuki has a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It's one of my favorite books. And one of the things that he talks about is you could be limited by your successes or freed by the openness of your mind. And I fucking love that, because there's so many times that we're like, okay, I've played this game, I've done this thing before, I've had this conversation similar to, so I'm going to follow this map.
Right.
But if you take that map away and you just let the options be your options, then everything just opens up in front of you in this beautiful way that you can just pick and choose, what you want and how you want to show up, and instead of just reverting back to this pattern that you've created.
Correct. Yeah. And I love just the idea of always having an open mind, because even the things that you did before doesn't mean that you're going to do them now, or vice versa. So always having the openness, like mentally, for whatever to show up, how it's supposed to show up for you in your practice or in your life.
Totally.
Applies all the way around. But most, you make up your mind and you're like, well, I've always done it this way, or I can't do that. And it's like, how about you just be curious?
Right. Yeah.
How about just be open and be curious and then see what happens?
Yeah.
So just start to maybe put one foot in front of the other, and you might find you do a posture that you've never thought you could do before, but because you are no longer in your mind about it, you were just like, okay, cool.
And that's actually a really good point. So, pre-COVID, I probably took, and I'm not saying this should be anybody's practice, and I'm going to admit here that I probably practiced a little too much, but I would take anywhere between 7 and 12 classes a week, right? Like, we're at it, right?
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like, we were doing doubles, like we were teaching and practicing at least once a day, if not twice a day, mostly twice a day, because we're addicted.
We're crazy, yeah, totally. But,
we're nuts,
but in a good way. in a way, like, so when we were all forced to slow down for COVID, some of us had home practices, and that's great. And even our home, I can only speak personally. My home practice was not as strong as my studio practice.
Correct.
But what I noticed, though, is when we were able to finally get back in the hot room and I got a couple of practices under my belt, I realized that my body had actually given itself time to recover in a proper way. And the muscles remembered what I was trying to do and what I was capable of, even though it took me a couple times to get back there. But I was able to actually get deeper and get more or achievement, quote unquote, to where I wanted to go in my personal practice after giving myself that 9 months of relaxation. And even though still practicing, not doing 12 classes a week plus teaching 12 classes a week, right? So in a way, like my body needed that recovery for it to get the opportunity to continue to grow.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting. Because again, but here's the thing. It's like we teach people not to go and push and do constantly. And here we are doing like the very thing that we're saying, don't do that.
I know.
Or at least not don't do it. It's more of just find some balance in that's yoga practice, right? Between being active and inactive and finding the balance in between. Right. And I don't know, I don't really think of it that way when I'm in my daily life of practicing every day. It's just part of what I do. It's like brushing my teeth or going to the bathroom, as we've often said or heard. We do yoga practice because it's part of taking care of ourselves. But on the flip side of it, we've been forced to slow down and stop. And there's something to be said about having the time to relax and recover. And then your body is like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're going to do this again? Cool. We're going to do some fun stuff.
Hell yeah.
Because I'm all relaxed now. I'm ready to go.
Exactly. Malleable, ready to open. Oh, man. Yeah, I got some Epsom salt in my body now. Oh, yeah. A little recovery going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
I love it.
So you've recently... I don't want to say maybe discovered, but really encapsulated Clubhouse.
Yes.
Like you're all about that life.
Yes.
I haven't tiptoed in there yet, but I've been hearing a lot about it. Like people that I follow a lot, like Aubrey Marcus and Elon Musk, and there's a lot of just brilliant minds and cool ideas happening out there. So talk to me about that. Let me see if you can convince me to jump on this.
What is it? What was that guy? He used to have like a table out in front of I don't know, a college or something like that, and he was like, try to convince me, the opposite of. Oh God, I can't remember his name, but or try to change my mind, or prove me wrong or something like that. Anyways,
like antagonistic.
Totally. So it's kind of Clubhouse like just began. So I don't know exactly when it started, but it was basically this beta app that is based on audio. So no video, it's just based on audio.
Right. It seems like it was like a COVID dream. Either it got popularity because of, or it was dreamed up during COVID times.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I'm not completely clear on that part of it, but one of my best friends, he was telling me about Clubhouse, and he's like, you should check it out. And I'm like, meh.
Right.
Whatever. He sent me the invitation. He said, you have to be invited to get on the app. You can't just go sign up for Clubhouse. That's kind of cool. Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, fine, I'll check it out. And the first time I heard it, I went into some random room and it was just a bunch of people talking. And I'm like, this is annoying.
Like in the 90s when we did those like party calls.
Totally. And I was like, I can't hear what anybody's saying. It was just like a clusterfuck of voices. And so I was like, well, this doesn't really make any sense. I mean, I like the idea of it just because of, my like for podcasts, for example. And so I thought of it as this live podcast app. But at that time, I think people were just on it and talking, and it wasn't as organized. And then I heard from a couple different people about Clubhouse. And so I was like, okay, it's kind of how I started yoga, because I kept meeting people that had done yoga. A friend of mine asked me to do it. And I was like, no, I don't have time for this. And then I kept meeting people who were doing yoga, and I was like, fine.
All right, I'll jump on the fucking bandwagon.
Okay, I'll just like take a class if everybody will shut up. Like, leave me alone. And here, 20 years later, I'm still doing yoga.
There you go.
So Clubhouse was sort of that same thing, and I got back onto the app, and there's these rooms like Money Monday, so you talk about all things about money. You talk about
cool.
The rich mindset versus the broke mindset. You have a motivation room. You have rooms about social media, TikTok, Clubhouse rooms specific. Then you have real estate rooms. You have people who have roasting rooms, like they're roasting other people in the room.
All the comedians are in there.
Oh,
just
totally.
throwing
Yeah.
shit at
My
each other.
girlfriend
Good
goes,
for them.
go into the roasting room, and I popped on, and they're like, oh, here comes Larissa, and then they just like immediately went in on me.
Yogini, huh?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, y'all talking too much, so I don't know who's roasting me better than the other person,
Right.
but I'm gonna go now. And they're like, oh, you can't handle it. And I'm like, click, I don't want to be in this room anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was hysterical, but I was also like, no, that's not for me.
Can I just be a fly on the wall and not just get shit talked to me?
Yeah.
I could just observe, please.
I could not be a fly in the wall. They just like immediately went in, and then my girlfriend's texting me. She's like, isn't this hysterical? I'm like, I literally just came in the room, and I'm like getting attacked here. Give me like a minute to see what's happening first. But anyway, so there's just all these different rooms.
Yeah.
There's rooms about manifesting. There's rooms about like business stuff. There's rooms on, creating connections and networking with other people.
Cool.
So pretty much any topic that you want.
Okay.
Is there, and you can also be a speaker yourself.
Okay.
And
So you can get educated, or you can be the educator of some sort.
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah, and these are people that literally you would be paying like $10,000 for a master class with them. And these are millionaires, billionaires. These are, people who are just starting businesses, asking questions on how to get started. You're making business connections. You're making friend connections.
Wow.
And like Clubhouse is connected to Instagram.
Okay.
And Instagram, I think, is owned by Facebook now or something like that.
Totally.
So the cross sort of pollination socially is amazing. So I go in these rooms. I've been pulled up on the speaker stage on a couple of them.
Nice.
And I'm like, I don't even have a bio yet.
How do you know I know what I'm talking about?
I know. I'm like, I'm just wearing a plaid shirt, and just like looking kind of silly in my picture. So I got pulled up a couple of times, and then, other times I raised my hand and shared a little bit. Yeah. And there's just so much encouragement and advice and guidance. And then you're like, we follow people on the Clubhouse app, and then you follow them on Instagram. And I have had the courage, if you will, to reach out to some of these very high level people and saying like, hey, when you said such and such, that was really amazing. Like, this is what I got out of the conversation, and, this is my point of view. And they write back. Like, they're actually people.
Wow, that's great.
So these are relationships that you're making with people you would probably never meet otherwise. Right. And you start recognizing their voices, and I usually listen to it while I'm at work in the morning. Cool. And there was a room the other day that they were talking about like your fan base. Like, they call them super fans, but it's basically what we would refer to as our community. Okay. On how to have a good relationship with your fans or your community, because a lot of them are based on like social media branding and marketing and whatnot. Okay. And I raised my hand, so I got pulled up to the speaker panel, and then they're like, okay, well, these people are gonna be able to say what they want to say, and Gary, the guy who leads the room, was like, okay, well, Larissa, you'll have a minute. And so I unmute it, and it's like, I work at a warehouse right now in the morning. Yeah. So it's like super crazy loud. And I go, I'm so sorry. I said, I just felt like I needed to say something. I had a yoga studio, and how I feel like you create super fans or your community is treating them like your friends and your family, and having that consistency of connection with them. And especially with COVID going on, reaching out to people and seeing how they were doing. And of course, like in the background, there's like machines and, like so many different noises behind me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Okay, that's all I had to say. I got to go. Bye. And they're like, that's okay. Thanks for sharing. And anyways, because I said, normally I don't say anything because I just listen. But I'm usually walking home with about 4 or 5 sticky notes from what I'm hearing them talk about, and their actionable like items and things, or apps that you haven't heard before, or ways to invest your money. And it's just
every time I talk to you now, you've got like a new idea or a new thing, and just like you're super excited, super jazzed. Like, I love it.
Yeah,
and that's that helps us self-actualize, right? You have so much knowledge from all the stuff you've done in life that this is hitting you in a very special way for a very special reason.
Yes, for sure. And I ended up creating a room.
Oh, cool. Good for you.
Yeah. The first one was unsuccessful, but that's okay. And this is, some of the other things that I'm hearing in these rooms is you just have to do it.
Yeah.
So, your podcast is probably not going to be, Elon Musk or like the most famous, podcasters that we know.
Right.
But start doing it.
Exactly. Just get out there, start doing it.
Start doing it. And, raise your hand more, because this is an audio platform. So we will recognize you by your voice, but the people who are on the panel, because they've been on since January, they haven't met before, but now they're like flying and meeting each other.
That's
and
awesome.
then when they get on the room, like they're actually having conversations and making friendships. So the first room I did, I work out at like 4 o'clock in the morning before I go to work, and
Peloton.
I know.
Hustling,
also super fan of Peloton.
Yeah, good on you.
And so I was like, I'm going to do a room at 4 o'clock in the morning, just sort of be that accountability partner for other people.
Yeah, good for you.
And I thought, well, I'll just try it out, see what it's like. And started the room. Nobody showed up, and I was like, well, that's good, because I'm still learning how people host the room, and that's why I say when I first went on, it was just a bunch of people talking.
Yeah.
And now it's like, hey, we're gonna refresh the room. You have to pull the screen down, and then it gives you the current people who are in the panel. If you want to follow this room, press the green house at the top. Make sure to follow all the speakers, and then when you follow them, put it to always following them, or sometimes following them, because then you get notification when that person is speaking in a room, or
so
when
all
they
the different
create
rooms
a room
that they go into, you can just kind of follow them. Cool.
So it's super cool, because these people know TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all YouTube, and how to utilize all of those platforms
as the tools that they are, not the addictions that they can be.
Yes.
Love that. Very cool.
But I'm hearing them learn about Clubhouse while they're on Clubhouse.
Cool.
So it's super cool to see like from this beginning stage, and like how they're figuring it out, and then sharing it with everybody else in these rooms of how it works, and you see it getting more organized, and they're kind of figuring out the algorithm of it and adjusting to that, but also sharing it too. And so it instead of just a bunch of voices talking, like it's gotten a lot more organized, and you can learn a lot from it as well. So the second room I did was yoga. So
nice.
I started a room, and it was actually while I was teaching a live yoga class.
Oh, cool.
So I thought, well, why not?
Why the hell not?
I'm already teaching a class, so I might as well just do a Clubhouse room.
Yeah.
And I had 2 people show up.
That's great.
So one of
Very
my
cool.
students from Bellevue, and then my cousin. And
awesome.
I was like, my people are here.
That's really cool.
But now I want to do it consistently, but I need to have the time to do it.
Right.
So that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out right now too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, send me an invite to Clubhouse.
Okay.
I want to get on that shit.
I know.
Start
You're
checking
going to
that
just
stuff out.
like die. And I tell everybody about it now.
Well, you've been talking to me about it for weeks now. If not longer.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically like yoga for me. Like I meet somebody, I'm like, hey, have you heard of Clubhouse? Are you on Clubhouse? Why are you not on Clubhouse? You're in real estate. You should be on Clubhouse.
There's so many good advice out there.
Yeah. And then you'll make connections with other people who are in real estate. Or, if you're wanting to get into social media and marketing, I'm like, you will meet people that way that you would never normally meet, and be able to have these conversations that normally literally people pay like tens of thousands of dollars for,
and
it's
they go
like
on wait lists for years to get in. That's, I think,
and you're having direct access to them. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Good, bad, and different. There's a lot of shit that's happened this last year, I guess year and a half now from COVID. But some of the good that has come out is the accessibility, like you said, for a lot of these folks. Because before I heard of Clubhouse, when we were still all going through COVID times, you had a lot of people, like you were saying, that just have very, very influential positions in their lives, that were doing free Instagram live chats, that were doing free like Facebook live things, or just throwing stuff up on YouTube. Be like, hey, I'm a master at this craft. I'm a great musician. I'm a great songwriter. This is my cue. This is how I do it. And it's like, holy shit, I get to learn from this person, not paying like thousands and millions of dollars just to get like, but no, I'm just like, add my on demand, pull it up. Here's YouTube. Here's a free thing. Here's so cool. Like Questlove talking about how to fucking DJ. And I'm like,
what?
Wow. I get to look at Questlove's music library. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's, like for me, it makes you realize, one, that they're people too, and
definitely.
Two is that we all need to have connections. So they're there to serve, but really they're there to connect. And there's a room that I started looking up, a podcast room.
Oh, cool.
And they basically are like, send me a DM on Instagram, say equipment, and I will send you a PDF of all the basic equipment you need. So you're getting, again, all these like free PDF and advice from people, and they're masters in their craft, 100%. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And they're like, we just want to serve. Whatever happens later happens. But I mean, obviously we want to monetize what we're doing, but we're in a position that we're okay. So we want to just be able to serve and share and help other people grow and learn and be successful themselves, because we all need to get through this together.
Definitely.
And
when you come from that place of abundance, that
abundance.
non-scarcity, definitely. If you're always giving, you're constantly sharing, that's going to come back to you. Because if you just hoard all your shit with that scarcity mentality, then all that information, you can hold on to it, but you're not going to gain anything from that information, right? You're not going to keep the community. You're not going to grow your influence if that's what you're trying to grow.
Right.
Man.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing.
Awesome.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. And this is why every day I come home and when we end up talking, you're like, okay, you got more ideas. And I'm like, and I got these new apps, and, I went on a rabbit hole down, on this subject, and learned XYZ, and I'm applying it. And the other thing that I'm finding right now too is that, I believe in manifestation and affirmation and, that encouragement, for other people, like you were saying, like when you come from a place of abundance, you get more abundance, and it's contagious. So I'm walking away from the 4 hours at work completely filled up. And I'm finding the things that are happening in my life are happening more rapidly and more positive, and where I feel like the manifestation, the universe has my back, and there's nothing that is stopping it. And sometimes you stop it yourself, like self-sabotage, for example, or you don't believe it, and you're just getting so much positivity like put in you where you're like, there's nothing that's going to stop me. I always get what I want, and this is what I'm going to get. Like my house.
Clear intentions.
I manifested that I was going to get my house sold between 575 and 600.
All right.
And I told my agent about manifesting, which he already kind of adopts a little bit of that. And he's like, well, 530, we're going to go with that. Like that's a strong offer, and he was like, for him in his own head, he was like, that was still a stretch. But I didn't tell him that I was doing the 575 to 600 manifestation. Because I'm still utilizing the support of other people, believing in the possibility of my house going above 500,000. And so when we got the offer, and it was 580, and it was all cash. And all the terms that I wanted, which is what I had been repeating in my head every single day.
There you go.
And so whatever the deal happened. And he looks at me and I go, I manifested that. And he goes, well, I thought we were doing 530. I go, that was you. I said, but I go 550 or better. And then I thought, no, that's not good enough for me. I'm like, it's got to be between 575 and 6. And that's what I kept focusing on. And that's what I ended up getting. So yeah. So I feel like the time on Clubhouse is pouring out in other areas of my life where things are working out better and faster. Yeah. And even more amazing than I could think of for myself. So
once you tune into that your personal frequency, you know, whatever that is, you know, because it changes. But once you tune into it and you can utilize that, especially as somebody that practices manifestation, which is a practice, you know, if you want to learn about it, I'll put some links in the show notes. Universal law of attraction. There's synchronicity. I mean, however you want to call it, right? But there are ways that you can, you are the one that's in control of your life, right?
I know.
I love the quote I heard the other day. Perception is 9/10 of the flaw.
Ooh.
Right? Because how you perceive something is going to be how you react to it, right? And because we're only able to experience the universe through our senses, through our senses, our sense of smell, our sight, you know. So, you know, we're experiencing that through the senses that we have, then through the interpretation of our consciousness through those senses. You know, so it's all kind of muddled, right? So if you can take the muddledness away from it and just, you know, find your way of seeing and accepting things as they are instead of how you feel that they are, then I think we take a lot of the anxiety and depression out of our own lives because we're not striving for or worried about or wishing we had or I should have done or lamenting because this is my life. This is what I have. This is what I accept it.
Right.
And I embrace it fully. I've made these mistakes. I've made these decisions. I'm going to change now moving forward. Not as easy as it sounds, right? Takes a lot of fucking practice. Takes a lot of practice to get to those points.
I know, it does. It sounds so simple.
Like you said earlier, you know, I don't know if we had it on tape or not, but put one foot in front of the other. It's kind of like, you know, and we all have addictions in our own way, whatever it is. But for me, you know, I do relate it back to rehab in a way because it is really one day at a time. And just focus on the day. Focus on the day. Focus on the day. Live in the now, in the presence. Yes, you can have plans for your future and plans for all this stuff. But you can only execute that at this moment.
Correct.
Yeah, you can't live in the future because then that's going to create that anxiety of like, oh my God, I have all this shit to do. I have this shit to do. And you can't live in the past because that creates the depression of like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that. You are this human being right now with all these experiences that you've had and all these dreams and progressions that you want to move towards.
Right. But then it's like, how do you align with your highest vibration if you're in the future or the past?
Exactly.
And you know, my mom says like plan is a 4-letter word for me.
Ooh, yeah.
You know, because she's like, well, what about a plan? I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, because like when I plan things, everything gets fucked up.
Yeah,
and I was
totally.
like, if I go based on like my vibration and my gut and my intuition, that's when shit is really, really good.
Right.
You know, and sometimes we talk about like the 3D world versus the 5D world.
Okay.
So, you know, 3D is the, you know, tangible. It's a touchable and you
touch,
go
see, smell, all that
right.
stuff.
And so 5D world is beyond that. So like in my reality, my house was going to sell between 575 and 600. And it didn't matter what was happening around me, what people were saying. In my reality, in my 5D world, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And I'm going to manifest it by having my vibration align with that, which doesn't seem real. Right. But in my reality, it is, if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah, totally.
But if I was, you know, adopting what other people were saying or the doubt that was coming in, or if I allowed myself to start doubting, then I'm no longer in the moment. I'm no longer in alignment. So I'm not going to have it mirrored back to me. Right. Kind of the quote you were saying, right? It's not going to be mirrored back to me because it's muddled with different messages versus me and my vibration and knowingness. Yeah. And feeling it as it is.
Because you're
to be like true for me. Right. So, well, when I'm getting it together with my parents, and I'm always like, that's not my reality.
Yeah. Right.
My mom's like, what? And I'm like, that's your reality. That's your perception of the situation or of me or whatever the case may be. But in my world, that doesn't exist.
Right.
And she's like, huh?
That's hard for people to understand, because I think people like that expect us all to be in the same reality. And it's like, that's not really how it works.
I don't live in this reality.
No. I live in a reality that I create.
Right.
Yeah.
True. 100%.
Yeah. Even, I mean, it sounds kind of stupid to say, but because it's so obvious.
Right. But it's weird because it's not even weird. I think the concept of it is super, super simple, but it's also so big that it's hard to grasp. Right. I mean,
because a lot of it is, yes, we create.
Does that make sense?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
There's a lot of responsibility around that, because you have to take responsibility for your life in order for you to be the driver of.
Yes.
And that responsibility is the responsibility for your actions, the responsibility for your attitude, and the understanding that if I, as Adam Real, is upset.
Right.
I'm not upset because Larissa did something to upset me.
Right.
I'm upset because I am allowing some insecure fear that I have to be exercised through the action that you've done, which is an upsetting to me, but it's because of something I need to work on.
Right.
It's nothing that you've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's really hard for people to understand, that their misery and their happiness is all up to them and how they perceive what's going on around them.
Correct.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It's a really hard pill to swallow, because even when you think that you're not coming from a victim place, that thinking is more from the victim place, in my opinion, because it's not, life happening what is it, like life is happening for you, not to you, sort of thing. And then with manifestation, like the world is you pushed out, which, like you said, it means you are responsible for what is happening around you. And it's a mirror, so then you always have to point the finger not outside but inside, and then you have to look of like, well, what is it about me that's showing up here, out there? And it's confronting. It is super confronting.
Yeah. I mean, and there's still traumatic things that are going to happen to us that we technically don't have control over, right? There's personalities that enter into our lives or whatever things, but how we allow those to govern our life is up to us, right? How you choose to process the things that you've gone through, how you choose to explore the opportunities for healing that which we all need, that's where you start to take the control back of your own personal life. Is because you are the one that's responsible for your healing.
Yes.
Like, as a Reiki practitioner, Reiki master, and sound practitioner, I am sought out because I hold space for people while they go through their healing. But I am not a healer. I am not the person that you come to, and we just, made the joke about hard pill to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow because a lot of people think that all they need is a pill to swallow and it'll make everything okay. That is not it. The pill, take the pill away. The pill is masking the thing that's actually caused the dis-ease in your body. You need to figure out how to find the person inside of you to heal that.
Well, and this is so crazy that you're saying that, because I just had a conversation, specifically about Bikram yoga, and like what you're saying is like people want to go to a doctor and have them tell them what's wrong with them or give them medication, or to come to you as a healer and say like, heal me, instead of recognizing that it's actually them doing the work. And literally had this conversation yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. Anyways, and about Bikram yoga and people not wanting to have anything to do with Bikram yoga because of Bikram and
the moniker that he has,
and the things that he's done. But I said, I had to go through a process around that. And I when I first started practicing, I was from that mentality of like, he saved my life. This teacher saved my life. It's from the outside versus from the inside. And over, a long period of time, I realized that I was the one who was always doing the practice. It was never him or any other teacher that was healing me. It was me healing myself. And so, I've been able to come to a place where I love the practice, and I'm going to continue practicing, and I'm going to continue sharing because I think there's value there. And he actually wasn't the one who created the yoga in the first place.
Right.
So
thank you. Yes, thank you.
For people like, but he did it. And I'm like, no, he didn't.
No.
He marketed it really, really well. And he made it very popular, but it wasn't his to begin with.
Right. That's like saying like Dogen Zenji and Shunju Suzuki invented Zen Buddhist and then brought it to America. This is like thousands and thousands of years old.
Right.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it's like, well, you're poo-pooing on a practice that's been around forever.
Yeah.
And I was telling my girlfriend, I said, I want to be the revolution for this yoga because I think this yoga has value. And if anybody would be the one to say, I don't want to practice it, I don't want to teach it, it would be me.
Yeah.
And to give some context to the listeners.
Yeah, because you've had a pretty checkered experience with Bikram yoga. And not just Bikram yoga, but Bikram.
But himself. And I was one of the victims of him being a rapist. So, so that's why I say, like, if anybody would say, I don't want to have anything to do with it, it would be me.
Right, yeah.
And it
would be understandable to many, many people.
Completely, and there was a time where I couldn't be in the room. I couldn't do the practice. I didn't want to teach it. I didn't want to hear, his name at all, and now, I definitely went through a dark place with it. But when I realized that it was my practice, and it always was, and it will always be. And he also didn't create it specifically.
Right. Yeah.
That helped.
Yeah.
For sure. That was very helpful. That I was able to come around full circle because as a teacher, we love seeing people become healthy.
Right.
We love seeing people get connected to themselves. And this is a way of people being able to have a physical meditation practice that's good for their bodies, and I try to teach from that place as well, from, loving, compassion, empathetic place towards people, which is a bit different than the traditional Bikram yoga class as well.
They beat you down and scream at you for not doing the right pose. You're drinking water when you're not supposed to drink water. I'm going to go sit on my fucking ice throne and talk shit to you from up on my fucking air-conditioned ice throne.
Yeah, and you're not doing the posture like deep enough. And, I had to work through an injury at one point during my practice. And, the teacher with this one particular class was like, you need to pull more. And I knew if I did, my back would go out.
Okay.
But that the teaching style was very militant and very push, and you're not doing enough. And, that's where people do end up hurting themselves because they think that they have to do it versus what is their body telling them to do. And so that's, again, kind of where I come back to, your practice is your own. And it's amazing. I totally lost my train of thought.
Oh no, you're good. And just a quick little roundabout.
I was like, wait, where am I landing this plane? I'm like, where did it go?
Well, just a quick roundabout. So Larissa did talk about how her experience with Bikram, and that's not revolutionary to this podcast, right? So if you want more information, Larissa has talked a lot about this in the past. She's been very vocal about her experience, and it's helped a lot of people come to an understanding about this, right? Correct. So if you're looking for more information on the depth of that, she's done interviews with Dr. Oz. Where else have you've got quite a few interviews out there?
Been Netflix on special, Netflix, Dateline, I think. Been on Vanity Fair magazine. We've done a ton of interviews because, for me, I was silent for a really, really long time because I thought that I was the only one that this had happened to.
Yeah.
And when I found out that there was another girl, and then finding out that there was many other girls over a very long period of time and had, various degrees of abuse and assault and whatever the case may be, I felt compelled to come forward and share my story because I wanted other people to know that they weren't alone.
Yeah.
And when I came forward and actually started talking about it, I had to go through the healing process that I should have gone through when it actually happened. But instead, I just swept it underneath the rug.
Totally. Yep.
And so I started using my voice, and, I went through PTSD and depression and anxiety and, obviously the challenges of being a yoga teacher and a practitioner during that time as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then, as I continued to share and be open about what happened to me, it helped my healing process from a personal point of view, but also from a teaching point of view and as a practitioner as well. So I've been able to come around full circle and find the love and passion for the practice as I had before.
That's amazing.
Which is,
Well,
cool.
we teach from where we come from. That's one of the best pieces of advice that I got, and so when you teach when you can utilize all of the emotions and the skills that you've learned through life and find a way to contextualize that in your teaching practice, that's where, like, I think there's a lot of moments in life where we self-actualize. Like, it's not just one. It's not like enlightenment, or even with enlightenment, if you want to believe in that, we have many points of enlightenment throughout our life. I think if you realize a new concept, you realize like Ken Wilber talks about wake up, clean up, grow up, show up. Like, you have a wake up a moment, you clean up because you've realized you've been doing some stuff wrong, and through that cleaning up, you're growing up because you're like, oh man, I feel got some new skills, right? This is great. And then you got to show back up because you can't just go live off in the middle of nowhere. You got to come back and say, hey, look, this is, like you said, actually for you are a perfect example of this. The thing that you entered into to help, probably save your life in some kind of way, to give you some kind of peace, to give you some kind of thing, right? Took a weird turn and ended up damaging or potentially damaging, but you also found your peace through that and continued the healthy practice and not bastardizing the practice because of one individual. Right. Through a traumatic experience, don't get me wrong. Right. But still seeing that there's health and well-being in the practice for you as a human being. Right. And that's actually, thank you for saying that, because now my brain is back on. Oh, you got cool. It's come back. Boomerang. And it's back. Hell yeah. But the conversation that I was having the other day of, like, people just have thrown out the practice altogether, or they're trying to change the practice so they can have some separation from the man. And I'm like, but that you're almost, to me, you're almost like bastardizing it even more than figuring out how to make it work for yourself. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's I lost my train of thought. It's all good. Well, what do you think about how do you think about, like, so in the Pacific Northwest, at least, we call it hatha practice. Right. Oh, sorry. Nope. Okay, sorry. Get it back. You're gonna have to edit all this. No, we're not editing shit. This is a conversation. But just I've having to, like, I feel like a lot of times, like, I'm having to convince people that the practice is good. And one of the points that I brought up was, hot yoga. So it used to be Bikram yoga, and then people knew it as hot yoga, and so hot yoga and Bikram yoga were pretty much one and the same, right? And then different practices started using the heat. So we have hot yoga, and then we have hot hatha, and now we have hot power. Hot power, yeah. And then, we still have hot yoga. And so the people who practice for a long time, or, there's new practitioners as well. But now we're in 2021. So somebody comes in and it's listed as hot yoga. I go to take a hot yoga class. Yeah. It's not Bikram yoga. Right. It's not hot yoga. It's not really hot hatha, because hot hatha has now been associated with hot yoga, which is associated with Bikram yoga, which is a sequence. Still a sequence of sorts. Still a sequence, right? Yep. And so this idea of trying to create some separation from Bikram, which now we already have like 5 degrees of separation by name, this kind of yoga. Yeah. So you go into the room expecting some sort of sequence. Right. And there is no sequence. And then the sequence that is being presented actually doesn't make sense for the body.
or to really be teaching it. And so I now, if I go to a studio for a hot yoga class, I have no idea
I know what you're getting into. Huh?
I have no idea what I'm getting into. So it may be the most amazing hot yoga class that I've ever been to, or it could be the worst hot yoga class I've ever been to because this person is, not well educated on the science of the body and
why this pose goes before this pose, and this pose sets up this next pose.
Correct. Like the flow of these postures, but it's all to try to separate from the man who doesn't even own the yoga.
Right. Yes.
So it's like the yoga isn't bad. The sequence isn't bad.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So it's okay to teach a sequence or something similar to that sequence. And you and I have explored a little bit with some variations to it as well.
Totally. Yeah.
But the foundation of it remains. So like, I know when I take your class, I know what to expect.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a wonderful part of the practice is the sequence, is the meditation, because that sequence helps you get into the meditation.
Right.
If you're going in a class and you have no idea what's coming up next for this particular style, you can't really get into that space.
Right.
And it's more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's definitely more difficult. So, I'm like, we still like Michael Jackson's music.
Right.
We still listen to his music. There's Iyengar yoga. There's, the various styles of yoga with the many teachers who have been inappropriate.
Right.
But we haven't stopped that practice or that sequence. So what makes this different? And to me, I'm like, I don't want to sit here and try to convince people that yoga is good and hatha yoga is good, because it is a hatha yoga practice. Yeah. We do enjoy the heat. So what I'm still grappling with, what's the difference here in this situation compared to all these other examples where we didn't throw out Michael Jackson's music or this kind of yoga, but for whatever reason we want to separate so much from it. I'm like, I was raped by this man, and I still love the yoga.
You still, because it's not his yoga. I think we need to make sure that it's
the distinction.
The people, so there's a lot of different types of practices, a lot of different ways that we can teach, a lot of different ways we can learn.
Right.
And so through that, you're going to come across shitty teachers, right? People that, and I love the quote, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill the Buddha.
Right.
Right. If you meet a guru that comes to you and says, hey, I'm your guru, I'm going to give you all the ansors. No.
Run.
Leave them alone. They have they're your best interest is the farthest from their mind, right? But so don't let the shittiness of your teacher or that teacher take you away from the practice that can be beautiful.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot of really great teachers out there. And even like, let's take the rapiness of Bikram out of this, right? Let's say like I've been teaching for almost like 7 or 8 years, right? You've been teaching for a long time. I might not be everybody's cup of tea, right? I play loud music, I curse, I am heavily tattooed, and I just love moving around and shit. Like, so like transitions and shit. Some of the stuff I do might not land with the person.
Right.
But that doesn't mean like you should not take yoga anymore because you can't take the class that I'm teaching, right? Find the teacher that lands with you.
Right.
And that can be said for a lot of stuff. Like I was not good in high school. I did not learn very well. I was a fuck up and I did a lot of drugs. But that doesn't mean that education's bullshit. That just means I wasn't being educated in the way I needed to be educated. Right.
At that time in your life.
Exactly. And once I got to a point to where I could sit down and understand that I can read a book about stuff that I want to learn about and educate myself. Ooh, man. You can't get me out of a book now. I'm in the middle of 3 books at any time, man. God damn.
Yeah, it's super, super amazing. And I love the practice so much, and just yoga in general. And I want to see more people maybe having being more open to having a greater understanding about the practice, and that if it's something that works for them, like, don't try to change it just to change it.
Right.
If it works, it works, and let's just go with that.
Yeah, I know. And that's, just kind of circling back to our, it's always us if we're upset kind of conversation.
Yeah.
I find myself, because like you said, Hatha is very regimented. It's like, this is a structure. I teach a fusion-ish Hatha, but it's still regular, right?
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get if you've been to my classes. And so when I personally seek out a Hatha class, I'm looking for that regimented.
Yeah.
I want to know what's coming next so I can get into my meditative mode, just like we talked about.
Yeah.
So when I don't get that, I find myself in those places when I first started practicing where I'm just like, just angry in my head, just like, where are you going? Why are we flowing? Did you just do a downward dog in the middle of fucking Hatha? Like, what is this crap?
Right?
But at the same time, it's like, all right, dude, you have limited chances to take yoga right now. You need this in your life, and you don't need to be critiquing everybody. Shut your brain off and just do what they're telling you to do. You know, so on the other side of that, that's like the brain yoga.
And I completely agree. And actually, been in the same situation where I'm like, I'm just happy to be here.
Right.
This is the most fucked up flow I've ever been in my life. But usually I'm really angry, and now I'm like, I love you. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm so happy.
Totally.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad to be here. Like, this is amazing. My body's going to hurt tomorrow. Like, not in a good way. Like, And I'm like, whatever, it's fine. So you're right. I mean, like, on the flip side of that. But yeah, it's just, when you have a certain, and again, this kind of comes around with a lot of our practices of like acceptance versus expectation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's the expectation, and then there's, well, that didn't happen, so I need to learn how to accept it too. So it's like this double-edged sword lesson opportunity there as well, which is kind of annoying because now I'm like, oh crap, I just taught myself to just shut the fuck up. Like, I'm basically wrong about everything.
Yep, totally.
I'm right and I'm wrong all at the same time.
All the time. Yeah. And it's all happening at the same time.
So don't listen to me, basically. Question everything, and just question everything.
Well, it's kind of like how
don't believe anything and question it all, and good luck with your life.
Yep. So you're basically a philosophical physicist now, right? Like, all time is happening at the same time. We just need to pick it out and then bring it to us. So it's just like watching a DVD or on YouTube, right? It's
so
just like,
funny.
here's a Martin Luther King speech, and now I'm living in that time frame. It's like, fucking hell. All right, I don't understand any of it. It all makes sense.
Yeah, none of it. No.
Jesus Christ.
Damn it.
Oh, man. So you are unfortunately moving to Arizona.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm super excited because I'm always happy to see people grow, and I know that you're not being taken from my life. We're still going to be homies, and we're still going to, like, now I have a place to stay in Arizona and vice versa.
Totally.
You have thousands of places to stay up here.
Yep.
But, so with you moving to Arizona, are you, what's your teaching plan?
I don't have one yet because plan is a 4-letter.
All right, there you go. Right on. Okay, let me ask you this.
But it's so it's a good question. And in all seriousness, I have reached out to a yoga studio out there. Weirdly, this is how synchronicity and universe and manifestation stuff works. You meet the right people at the right time, right conversation.
Totally.
That's my belief system. So I'm attracting more of that. So the studios in Washington recently opened up. I taught a class 2 weeks ago. This lady came in, first-time student.
Okay.
And after class, she overheard me talking to the studio owner about selling my house and moving to Arizona. And she goes, well, you should check out this studio. I know that they're hiring. And I looked at her and she goes, I'm a yoga teacher as well, and I actually live in Arizona part-time. I just happen to be out in Washington, and I've decided to try out fusion today. What?
Right. Yep. Exactly. How many things had to line up for that thing to happen?
Very specific thing. And of course, she walks in. She doesn't say that she's a teacher, but I'm watching her practice. I'm like, oh, she's practiced before. I'm like, and I do the same thing. Like, if I go somewhere new, I'm purposely a student, so I don't say anything. And of course, afterwards, they're like, "You've done this before, haven't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
No, what are you talking about? My first class.
I'm a new student, even though I've been doing it for 20 years. Anyway, so just the fact that all of that stuff lined up, and I immediately reached out to the studio, and I said, "I'm sure that this is very much, way too soon for me to be contacting you because I'm not even there yet. But you know what? I'm all about making connections, and you can never have too many connections and good people in your life. So I was like, here's basically what I'm doing. I'm going to be out in Arizona in the next couple months. And, I heard that you were teaching and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, why don't you come over here and practice, see if we are actually the good vibe, our vibes match with each other. But I'd be happy to, make a connection and talk with you about the possibility of teaching. And so then I had another conversation with a teacher from Firehouse Hot Yoga who happened to see one of my posts on Facebook. He calls me up. His two brothers live in Arizona, and he had spent time in Arizona when he first started teaching.
Right.
So he knows studio owners, he knows teachers, and he's like, I'm going to make some phone calls. You've always been really good to me. I want to make sure I take care of you too. And I was like, okay.
Awesome. Hell yeah, man.
So when
get your own recruiters out there for you.
Yeah. So when you're like, what's your plan? I'm like, my plan is to not have a plan, because by not having a plan, the plan always
works out.
Presents itself. And here we are in the middle of it presenting itself. Right people, right time, right conversations, right opportunities. And it's freaking amazing.
Love that. Well, and I was just thinking about it too. Like, there's so many people that we know that have moved either recently or within the past few years. I mean, there's Richard Grace out there, Casey Calvert, Jenny Dreyfus. I mean, there's so many people in Arizona right now that.
And she reached out to me too. And
Jenny
she's like,
oh, that's great.
Yeah. And she's like, when are you going to be here? And I was like, it's not soon enough.
Oh, man.
I'll be there soon, very soon. And so we're like, we're going to go for a hike together. And I had a friend call me up and he was like, hey, I'm going to Arizona next week. And I'm basically planning on moving there too. And I'm like, what?
Oh, that's great. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So it's just here's the thing is like you put it out there and people respond to it.
Exactly.
When you allow yourself to be open from a place of abundance and you allow yourself to be open, then it always comes back to you like tenfold, if not 100-fold. Yeah. And I'm seeing that happen in real life. So it's super cool. But yeah, it of course makes my parents a bit nervous for me to go someplace, a little blind, if you will. But I've never not had things work out for me. Right. Which, again, what our culture tells us to do and to believe and how to be and the way to move through life. I'm like, I don't subscribe to that.
Well, I think, and I think,
and I just look like some freakazoid who is just fly by the seat of my pants. I'm like, there is a method to the madness. Yes. It's just, it's hard to be able to explain it to somebody who doesn't have the perspective that I have or the experiences in my life where things have worked out in a particular way where I'm like, this shit's true. Like, this actually works. Right. And I'm going to be okay. But I'm following where I need to go right now. And all the doors are opening. Right. So.
Well, I think, the phrase work out, in that context is like the antithesis of trying. Yes. Right. Because a lot of times, okay, let's just say we're not manifesting, or we're just, we're moving in we're just living, right? We're just living. And so when we consider like working out, right, let's say like I'm going to move back to Texas, right? And by moving back to Texas, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get a pension, I'm going to start a family, blah, blah, blah. Right. Now, if things don't start to quote unquote work out,
then what?
A lot of that is because you're not doing the work.
Yes.
It doesn't just work out. Yeah. Like, it's just, like there's a lot of times in our industry that we're in, like we do put a lot of faith in the universe and into the world, into gods, deities, whatever it is. Right. And yes, I do believe that we get help from around us, from our spirit guides, our animals, all this stuff. But it's still work. You can't just put it out there and be like, cool, I'm just going to, I'll come manifest a house and then not do anything else again, not do any research, not call a real estate agent, not set a budget. Like, there's still work you need to do.
Absolutely.
And so your variation of working out is still like, you are a manifester. Oh, yeah. You're putting in the work. Oh, 100%. It's not just like, I'm just going to put it out there. It's going to make it work. Yeah. Like, no, you are fucking working your ass off. And that's why I love talking with you, because you're inspiring to me. Yeah. Like, every time we talk, you have a new idea. And it's like, great. There's other people out there with ideas that are just churning them out, And by talking with you, I get ideas. We share ideas. It sparks other shit. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And they're on Clubhouse, of course. I'm going to quote this, but I've heard a lot of failing forward.
Yeah.
And I like that term because I feel like I've lived a lot of my life that way. And again, it's very opposite of, we want to do things from a safe place or a secure place from, our normal like American perspective, like you're going to move to Arizona. Well, why are you moving to Arizona? I'm like, I don't know, because I am. And they're like, well, why'd you pick Arizona? Like what's there? I go, I'm going to be.
There you go. Right, exactly. Yeah.
And they're like, huh?
Make shit happen.
Yeah. And, I'm looking for a place to live out there. And so, found a couple options, and I want to have an income property. So when you're talking about doing the work, for example, like I have, found a place that I liked, and then I looked on Airbnb. I found that there was a unit in that complex that's an Airbnb. So I contacted the people who are running the Airbnb with the unit in the same complex that I'm looking at. So I'm manifesting, I'm calling things in, but I'm also doing the work. I'm calling an agent and like, here's this stuff, here's the information that I need to have. So it's, most people would traditionally, I'm going to move to Arizona. So I'm going to get a job. I'm going to, make sure that my house is set up, and, like everything is already set up prior to going. Right. And I'm like, I kind of do the opposite.
Let's get down there and figure it out.
With manifesting, right? It's like living at the end. So like what's your vision? What do you want to see happen? And you're like, you hold the vision and then you do the work, and then you
work your way backwards from it.
Yeah. Like you work backwards from it, but you also like trust that all the right things are going to take place to get you where you need to be.
Right.
And I've even given this advice to my friends sometimes when they want to start a new business or they have a different idea, or a business idea. And I'm like, just do something.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I don't have the education. I'm like, I don't have the education on a lot of
Put
stuff.
It out there.
I'm like, do you see me doing things? Yeah. But it's not that I necessarily know exactly what I'm doing, but I always have the conversations that educate me through the process of going towards that goal. And even if I don't land at that particular goal, the fact that I'm taking action towards it will maybe lead me to a conversation or a business opportunity or a person that I'm now going to get new information that may help guide some of my decision towards what I'm actually supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I may think like, this is what I want to do. And I start working towards it and realize that's actually not my purpose. Like that's not how my gifts and skill set is going to be best used in this world.
Right.
So I take a right.
Yep.
And people are like, well, that's a failure. You can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I can. We're allowed to change our mind.
Most
and
definitely.
As we get more information, it may not be the right path for us, and that's okay. But, a traditional is like you go to school, then you get a job, then you go to college, then you get a car, then you get a dog, then you get a house, then you get a wife, and then you have children, and then you save money, and then you have a retirement. Like it's
linear. Yeah.
Thank you. That was exactly what was in my head. Linear.
Yeah.
Versus me of like life is ever flowing.
Right.
And so when, like I said, when my friends have come to me with different ideas, I'm like, just do something.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I don't have, not everything's set up. I'm like, so what?
Yeah.
Because that might not be your ultimate destination, but you're not going to know that it is or is not your ultimate destination unless you start doing something towards it. And then maybe you take a detour and maybe you come back, or maybe that's like the thing and it grows stronger, stronger, stronger. And you won't know.
Yeah.
You literally won't know unless you try. And that's where the failing forward comes in too.
Failing forward. That's a great, I love that term.
And with people with me, they're like, you have all these different ideas and well, they don't always work out. I'm like, that's okay.
That's totally fine. Because the knowledge gained from that, those what we would consider failures, that is, I would much rather, and I had a boss tell me this, a mentor tell me this back when I was, when I finally got into management, started hiring people.
Yeah.
And he told me, he's like, I'd rather have somebody that's failed 1,000 times than somebody that's never failed.
Yeah.
Because not only do you need to know what failure feels like so you can know how to bounce back from it, but there's so many lessons to learn from what we consider a failure to make those successes stick next time.
Correct. Yeah.
Even within a failure, there's many successes.
Totally.
The overall answer might not be a success, but there's successful steps. And those
Within
steps can be
that.
used. Yeah, exactly. And those steps can be utilized in some other kind of way put down the road in some other kind of
Yeah.
place with a different kind of team, with a
Yep.
different kind of mentality, different
Yep.
knowledge, and there you go. You've
Yeah.
just fucking taken over whatever you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I look at like the time in COVID, it's if we didn't have that skill set, or a lot of people, I mean, the people who are thriving through this versus the people who are like devastated,
Right.
through this, not just through death from COVID, but just in life, because you don't have the skill set or just that ability to bounce back or to think creatively or outside the box to be able to navigate this happy.
Yeah, there's I'm happy you said that. I do. And there's something my dad's since passed away. He's been passed for about 12 years now. But I was talking to my mom, I'd say about 6 months after COVID happened. And I called her and my intention was to thank her and to thank her and my dad for teaching me how to problem solve.
Yeah.
Like, as parents, we
God.
can't teach our kids everything.
No.
Like, we can't teach them like all the things they're going to learn, all the experiences they're going to have in life. That's, there's no way to do that.
Right.
But, the thing that my parents set us up for, all three of my two brothers and myself, was how to problem solve, how to understand, like, these are the factors that are weighing into your decision.
Right.
How do you work those within your life, and what's the best plan of action? And being malleable to make sure that if something fails, you can just move and pivot to the next thing.
Right.
Because you're constantly problem solving.
Yeah.
And that skill I've always utilized, but I don't think I realized how, I don't want to say good I am at it, but how much I guess I utilize that skill until COVID happened.
Yep.
And, I'm a list maker. I have fucking tons of lists on my phone. Google Apps, Google Keep is my jam.
Yeah.
And I've kept this list probably, let's see, I've had this phone probably 10 years. So I've had a list of shit that I don't have time for.
Yeah.
And I have many other lists, but that was one of the ones that I constantly just dump stuff into, like write a book, do a podcast, start a YouTube channel, record yoga classes, all these things.
My list is very similar in my head, but it's the same list, but it's up here.
Right?
Every day I'm like, damn it.
Right.
Do those things.
And finally, once COVID happened, we realized that, hey, we're going to have some time on our hands for a while. It's like, hey, pop this list open.
Right.
And be scared of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of shit in there that you don't think you're prepared to do. Yeah. But then started knocking it out.
Right.
And I failed at a couple things. But that failure of, like, let's say, YouTube channel, I'm not doing it anymore. I wouldn't call it a failure, but I'm not still posting up there. But through utilizing the YouTube channel, I got comfortable being in front of camera, comfortable hearing my own voice, comfortable going through the process of editing, right? Which I haven't done in a long time. I thought it was really difficult. And so through all that, even though I'm not utilizing that YouTube channel anymore, it's still up and open, and I'll leave a link in the show notes.
Yay.
But I've now utilized those skills to do this podcast.
Right.
And even if this podcast isn't the thing that carries me forward, I'm learning a lot about this skill to take that into the next thing that I do. And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I'm only almost 41 years old. I think I still have a long life ahead of me unless anything crazy happens.
Right.
So all these experiences and all these shit that I've gone through, learned, failed, fallen on my face, been dragged through the mud. It's like, man, on the other side, there's a lot of really cool skills that come from that shit.
Beautiful. And to give some props to our parents as well. Is I was like talking the other day of like, we didn't have a slip and slide. We used a tarp.
Yeah, right.
And the hose. We didn't have a trampoline. Mom threw out an old mattress in the backyard and said, go have fun.
There you go.
So, I really appreciate our upbringing because I know we're, close to each other's age. I'm older than you, but just in that time period of having to problem solve, I'm bored. Okay, not my problem. Figure it out. And you're like,
there's no tablet to turn on.
Yeah, but that was how, that was the parenting, it's like, I'm bored. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Not literally not my problem. Go figure it out. Go outside. Well, I don't want to go outside. And then
go outside and lock. She would lock the door. Lock the fucking door. Go out there and don't come back until you hear my voice.
Right, or the triangle bell. It's dinner time. It's getting dark outside. You gotta come back home. That was how I was raised. It's like go outside. Go do things.
Yep.
I will ring the bell when it's dinner, and you better be home. Period. End of story. So. a lot of those skills that we learned as kids, we probably don't even realize that we're using it when we're using it, like you said,
Totally.
until you kind of have a moment of reflection, or, this time of COVID where you're like, wow, like I'm so grateful that I was raised in a way that always got me thinking more creatively and outside the box, and using my imagination and using my problem solving skills, because not having that, I don't know where I would be or how I would be handling this.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're like always coming up with ideas too. And
I love sharing ideas.
I know,
with
and
you.
I'm
It's
like,
the best.
when you're like podcasts and YouTube, and I'm like, yes. I'm like, okay, this is encouragement for me as well, because I keep talking about it. But I want to, my particular chapter right now in life is not just talk about it, do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it. Action cancels out fear. So just keep taking action, action.
Love
And there
that.
is no space for fear.
Yeah.
You just do. And I want to get more comfortable, like on a microphone. I want to get more comfortable in front of a camera, but it's not going to happen unless I start doing it.
Unless you do it. Totally.
You have been a good inspiration for me to start working on that stuff as well. So thank you.
Oh man. Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. Well, we're just on a love fest right now. We
So
love
great.
our parents. We love each other.
Yes.
So actually, why don't we just wrap it up there?
Okay.
Wrap it up on a love fest.
I love it.
Big shout out to the parents,
Yay.
Faye and Bill Reel. Big shout out to Bill Reel. You're in the other life, but love the shit out of you, my father. And Faye Reel, raising 3 boys. Look at you go, fucking mom. And I don't know if I've met your dad. I think I've met your mom before.
Yes. My dad, Craig. My mom is Lynn.
Okay.
My dad actually helped me on the desk at the Firehouse Hot Yoga Studio.
Oh, cool.
So I'm kind of surprised that you never met him.
I might have, but just not knowing that he was your dad. But I've met your mom as your mother.
Right.
Like, this is my mom.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And, my dad, bless his little heart, he doesn't practice yoga at all, but he was managing the desk at the yoga studio, which is hysterical, because he was trying to blend in with everybody. And I'm like, you don't do yoga, Dad. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Good chaturangas in there, people.
He was like so adorable. He's so cute.
I love it.
So, my parents are still married, and they're super sweet, and
awesome.
They live in the neighborhood next to me, and we spend a lot of time together. And we've had the ups and downs, I think, of
totally.
any parent-child relationship, but we're in such a good place, and they're great people, and we get to laugh a lot about things of the past.
Yes,
for the most part.
And I think that's where we need to be. We need to understand that we've done shit in the past that we're probably not. I wouldn't say not proud of, but the shit that we've done.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about it openly in a jocular kind of manner is really, really healthy and really freeing, you know, and like I alluded to at the beginning, I've done a lot of stupid shit in my life,
same.
and now my mom and I can talk about it and have a really good relationship. And I actually look forward to having those talks with my kids when they get older.
Yeah.
My kids are 16 and 12 now, and they understand that dad's had a checkered past.
Right.
But they also, I think if anything, it's, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but to me, it's inspirational to see people that have pulled themselves out of something.
Yes.
And again, not knowing exactly my checkeredness of my past,
right,
but knowing that I am a different person than I was, I think is hopefully inspiring to them to know that they always can be malleable.
Right.
And meeting people like yourself and hearing your story and seeing what you've overcome inspires me to keep going. Right. Because like we all get downtrodden at times. Like we've all had bad things happen to us. And I'm not trying to discount any badness that's happened to anybody. What I'm asking is that try to find your path to heal.
Yes.
Because there is a healing path out there for you.
Yep.
Yes, we've been hurt, we've been fucked up in our lives, but there is a path out there for you to heal. I implore you to try to find it.
Yep. Well, I'm glad that we get to be examples for each other with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank
well,
you.
The next time I have you on might be a Zoom call, so you might be able to hear the internet warble of Larissa's beautiful voice.
Yay.
But I wish you well, and I know you're here for about a month still, so I know I get some time with you, but safe travels. I'm so excited for Arizona to be getting you for a little while, and I hope that you come back soon.
Oh, I will.
Love you, love.
Yes, love you.
See you next time, guys.
Bye.
All right. Thanks a lot for listening. That was the lovely Larissa Anderson. If you have any questions about what we talked about, you can check out the show notes. Leave some links in there for you. If you like the podcast, please subscribe to it. And we will see you next time. Obeisance to you all.